immigration, illegal immigration, I believe is one of the two great challenges facing the world over the next century. The other one, of course, being climate change, and indeed climate change may well increase immigration as well. And so we are doing, I think, we are really meeting our commitments to tackle illegal migration and to do so in a way that will deter those criminal gangs trying to ship more people over the channel.
You have been in your job
you.
for just a couple of weeks. How is it going?
Well, I'm very conscious, not just of the huge honour, but also the enormous responsibility I bear as Health Secretary. And so I think the first couple of weeks, I hope, give people comfort, reassurance, and also some sense of hope as to how I plan to look after our NHS, look after our social care system as Secretary of State. So, for example, in the first 2 weeks, I've been able to reach a settlement with the consultants arm of the BMA, which, if consultants are able to vote for this new contract that we have drafted, then that will mean an end to industrial action, which will help with some of the waiting lists that we will no doubt be talking about. We've also had a really important announcement about manifesto commitments. We have met our manifesto commitment to recruit 50,000 more nurses into the NHS. This is great news, and it is having an impact in our hospitals around the country. And then finally, I know that people can find it hard to get access to their GPs, but I'm extremely grateful to all our GPs who have together brought 50 million more appointments available to patients since 2019. That was a promise we made, and it's a promise we've been able to keep with the hard work of GPs around the country.
Well, you're also promising to protect children from health harms today, but your government promised to ban junk food adverts online and on television before 9 p.m. and to ban junk food buy one get one free deals, but then you delayed those plans. So are you going to bring those plans back?
Well, actually, the number one public health difference we can make for children is the Prime Minister's commitment to create the first smoke-free generation. So it means that children who are aged 14 and under now will never be able to buy a cigarette legally in this country. That is an enormous step forward, and I think also, mums and dads around the country are really welcoming this policy.
So junk food,
that's the first thing I'm focusing on. And then, of course, obesity is incredibly important, and it's not just about helping our children have a healthy relationship with food, but all of us have a healthy relationship with food. And so I'm going to be looking at this very carefully over the coming months to see what we believe will work to help people be that little bit healthier.
So could you bring those plans back again? Instead of delaying them, I think, to 2025, are you looking at reintroducing them more quickly?
So forgive me, I'm very new into this job. I'm looking at everything, and I will want to convince myself as to the effectiveness of measures that have been announced and so on.
Okay.
But
so
I do think this announcement on smoking is a really significant one, and it's going to make a huge difference for all our children as they grow up. So
it's one of the options. But another area, that we want to talk to you about is social care, and another council has gone under this week. The burden of social care is absolutely massive on councils. For some, it's now almost all that they can do. What are you doing right now to help them with that burden?
You're absolutely right to identify social care, not just in the context, of course, of the care itself in the community, but also the impact that it has on our hospitals if the social care is not available when people need it, when to be discharged from hospital. So we have already announced, and we're putting in place a further £600 million of funding into social care, which is really beginning to have dramatic effects around the country. So we're seeing our very, very, very valuable workforce who work so very hard looking after people who need social care, both in residential homes, but also importantly in people's own homes, domiciliary care. We're seeing those people have better working terms and conditions as arranged through their local councils, because we appreciate what may work in one part of the country may not be appropriate for another part of the country. And we're really beginning to see some very, very promising results from that. But of course, social care is a critical part of our whole health and care system, because I absolutely understand people's concerns that they themselves or they want their loved ones to be looked after well in their older years.
I mean, you talk there about improving pay and conditions for people who work in social care, yet your government is allowing people to come into this country at a 20% discount on their salary, and some in social care say it's undercutting and driving down wages. Would you like to see that end?
So actually, if you look at what the Chancellor announced in the autumn statement, we have, of course, increased the national living wage, so that will help many care workers around the country.
But forgive me, Victoria Atkins, forgive me, I'm talking about, just forgive me, I'm talking about people who come into this country to work in health and social care. There are almost, I think, over 100,000 people now on that list who are coming into this country at a discount of 20% on the wages that have to be paid by health and social care for people who live here. Would you like to see an end to that practice?
So what I want to see, obviously, is that our social care staff are valued for a very, very important role. If you remember, when we brought in the visa system, it was because we wanted to address very quickly some of the issues that we were seeing in social care, because social care, I don't think, has the status it deserves in our society, and that's a wider conversation for us all to have. But we wanted to help bring people in. We have done that, and I'm extremely grateful to the nurses and social care workers who have come across to work on these visas. But I'm also looking actually at ensuring that these visas are used appropriately, but also that they're used fairly, because we know that there have been some allegations of visas being misused, being exploited, and I will absolutely work with my Home Office colleagues and across government to crack down on that sort of exploitative action.
We understand that we could see the Rwanda Treaty in emergency legislation this week. Is that right?
I'm not going to comment on speculation at this point. The Prime Minister is determined to bring this legislation forward as quickly as possible, but we've got to make sure that it is effective and that it does the job we need it to do. So we're all working very hard on this, but I can't comment, I'm afraid, on precise timeframes.
Is more millions of pounds to Rwanda value for money, do you think?
Again, I can't comment on speculation. I know there's been some reporting today in the Times, but what we want to do is address some of those concerns that the Supreme Court put down in their judgment. Of course, we respect the judgment, but we are confident that we can meet those concerns, and we can do that in a variety of ways, including a new treaty with Rwanda. And the Home Secretary is doing everything he can to ensure that happens so that those flights can take off.
I mean, I understand your sense that you don't want to talk about potential policy, but you are a cabinet minister. You sit at the top table of government, and we're talking about a policy the Prime Minister says he is committed to no matter what. So are you happy as a cabinet minister to send more money to Rwanda in order to ensure that those flights take off? Is that the right policy, do you think, for the government to be pursuing?
I'm perfectly happy to talk about policy. I'm just not going to preempt or comment on speculation. So the policy of Rwanda, I absolutely agree with. I think the Prime Minister has already seen he's made really very significant progress on tackling the illegal migration that we see. You know, illegal boat crossings are down by a third compared to this time last year, whilst at the same time immigration is increasing across Europe, illegal immigration. So that is a significant achievement, and that's been achieved through international agreements with Albania, with France and other international partners, but also just through the very, very hard work that he and the Home Secretary and Home Office ministers are doing to ensure that our asylum claims are speeded up and so on. And so Rwanda is a really important part of our plan. Incidentally, Labour has voted against all of these plans, I think some 50 times now, but we have managed to cut boat crossings by a third. We want to go much, much further, and Rwanda is part of that.
So Rwanda's part of the plan, £140 million spent so far. Is that enough money, do you think?
What we're focusing on at the moment is the Supreme Court judgment and addressing, as we believe we can, some of those concerns that were voiced on evidence. In fairness, many months ago, we believe we're confident we're in a position where we can address those concerns so that flights can take off. And Rwanda is a really important deterrence to the criminal communities that exist around Europe trying to bring very vulnerable people onto boats, including children, very treacherous conditions over the channel. This is part of our plan to address this, but it is part of it, but there is much more that is going on in the immigration space to address this as well. And let's not forget, immigration, illegal immigration, I believe is one of the two great challenges facing the world over the next century. The other one, of course, being climate change, and indeed climate change may well increase immigration as well. And so we are doing, I think, we are really meeting our commitments to tackle illegal migration and to do so in a way that will deter those criminal gangs trying to ship more people over the channel.
Do you think it's a good move then to snub the Greek Prime Minister, who's dealing with migration coming into Europe, some of which then crosses the channel?
Well, we have a very good relationship with the Greek people, and as has been talked about a lot this week, there were certain agreements and understandings that were made about...
Yeah, but I mean, what we've got is Keir Starmer being able to have a sensible conversation and the Prime Minister throwing his toys out of the pram.
Well, just on that point, if Sir Keir Starmer was serious about immigration, then he would not have led his party through the division lobby against every single one of our immigration policies over recent years. And what is so depressing...
Well, he might have a better idea. I mean, he might think Rwanda is a waste of money, 140 billion with nothing coming back from Rwanda. He might think there's a better idea. His argument is talk to the French and the Greeks and others.
Which we are already doing. So he
well,
does
you're
not.
You cancelled the meeting between the two prime ministers.
But he does not, in that, everything he has suggested, we are already doing and we have been doing for some time. So, for example, more arrangements and agreements with the French. We have been reaching those agreements. We now have law enforcement officers on the ground helping the French with their investigation and detection programs. We have, as I say, the agreement with Albania that has led to a drop of 90% of Albanians coming across illegally.
Yeah, okay. Now,
whereas Sir Keir has just voted no against every single measure we've put before the House.
Well, I think, in fairness to Labour, they have put forward alternative proposals. But let's move on to your policies. Senior US administration officials, including the Vice President, are calling on Israel to show restraint in the latest phase of its attack on Gaza. Does the British government echo those?
We have always said that Israel has the absolute right to defend itself. Those events on October the 7th were absolutely horrifying. And of course, they continue to this day, because although some hostages have been released, there are many more hostages who are still being held captive by these terrorists. And so we have always said that Israel has the right to defend itself, but that it must do so within international law.
But you're not...
The US and others...
are you supporting?
We're all very much in agreement on that.
You're supporting the change in tone then from the US administration.
In fairness, I think the international community has always emphasised this need for Israel to be acting within international law. In fairness to the whole of the international community, not just the US and the UK, and so. The US now have made these comments, and from the coverage I've seen very fleetingly this morning, of course Israel understands that. But the greatest humanitarian crisis is of Hamas's own making, and as they continue to hold people captive, as indeed Janice Turner wrote yesterday in the Times about the way in which rape has been used as a weapon of war. Utterly shocking instances. Those are the great humanitarian crimes that the Hamas terrorists have committed against people, regardless of their role in society, their age. They have behaved absolutely disgracefully, and so we know and understand and support Israel in its efforts to defend itself.